You Booked It, episode 50. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world. I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainers 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to be a successful entertainer. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainers. We are here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating and review. And to show our appreciation for your, fingers crossed, 5-star rating and review, I will give you a shout out on an upcoming episode. And now, let's do this. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Wendy Seyb. Are you ready for this, Wendy?
I sure am.
Beautiful. Wendy is an award-winning director, writer, choreographer, and producer for film, digital series, and branded content, theater, and dance. Her award-winning short film, which starred Emmy winner Peter Scolari, won 9 awards and screened at 20 festivals around the world. She has worked on top shows on Broadway, off-Broadway, national and international tours, and all over the U.S. at regional theaters, as well as at top companies such as NBC, Amazon Studios, Disney, Nickelodeon, and the Sacramento Ballet. She has worked with Grammy, Emmy, and Tony award-winning creators and talent including Sting, Oscar Isaac, James Taylor, Christopher Lloyd, Paul Rubens, Clint Black, Harry Connick Jr., David Bryan of Bon Jovi, Greg Cotis, and John Rando. She is currently developing 3 new comedy series and her first feature film, which is a full dance comedy narrative. Wendy, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Fill in the gaps. Who you are, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
Sure. Having you read that out loud. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of things I've done.
Mm-hmm.
I started as a dancer. I moved through that. My whole life, I've actually been doing choreography. I just didn't know it was a job. I came to New York, and I've just been moving my way through some wonderful different kinds of mediums of storytelling. So to me, I'm a storyteller. I just happen to like all different kinds of styles. And as I move from one to the other, they tend to feed one another. So as you can see, I've worked over many different mediums, but it's usually always comedy and story. I've had the pleasure of working in theater since 2005 here in Manhattan. But I also moved here into 1995, just dated myself. But I came here to move into dance, I was in the modern world trying to figure out what my style is. And then I've always been a cinephile since I was a kid. So eventually I found my way into that, and also series in the past, let's say like 6 years. So I'm always hungry for a good challenge, always trying to find new information on how to tell a stronger story, a better story, a more engaging and more diverse story. And so I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky and very grateful for the opportunities that have been given to me, but also I've fought very hard for those opportunities at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's move on to this next section here. And look, Wendy, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everybody?
I was trying to think of one, and the only one I could think of is kind of silly, but it actually is pretty awesome. As I get older, it means more. It's wherever you go, there you are.
I love that. I've heard that.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I've heard that a few times, but never on the interview. I love this.
It's from a film called The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. And it's a very weird, kooky film with Peter Weller, John Lithgow, like a bunch of people. Like I think it was in the mid '80s, and it's such a goofy quote. But as I get older, I tell myself that I'm like, right. Just for me, it means being present. As
For sure.
artists, as artists, we're always like, okay, we gotta, what's the next project? What are we doing? You're always working on different projects at the same time and pushing things through and making things happen. That it's hard sometimes to just stop and be like, right, I'm in the world. It's not just about the projects. I have a wonderful husband. We have a great apartment here with 2 cats, and so just remembering to be present and have a life outside of that. So I've used that sort of as my mantra a little bit.
I love it. I love that it's so simple, a bit understated, and I can absolutely admit myself being very guilty of, just looking at the future, doing a project and being like, all right, that was cool. What's next? What's next? What's next? And you always want to keep creating, but there's so much fun and richness when you live in the present, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, let's move to this section. And Wendy, of course, you are a professional in the entertainment industry. I am also a professional in this industry. And I think you'd agree that the entertainment industry is one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries either of us have probably ever experienced. And you know as well as I that in order to create and to have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yes, of course, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being a professional in this industry, there are also our fair share of obstacles and challenges and failures that we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
I think one of the main challenges was trying to figure out what I really want to do and realizing it doesn't exist.
Okay, can you
At the
explain?
time, sure. At the time, it didn't exist. And I realized I had to manifest that. I had to continue to, chip away at the piece of marble to discover my David. Although I am nowhere near Michelangelo. Let's make it clear very much right now. But it wasn't just like, oh, I direct musical theater. Here's what I do. Da, 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 da. Not that that's easy for others either, but like, as I was saying about my background, I sort of fit in a bunch of different places, but never did I find one that totally fit exactly what I had been seeing for my entire life, which is my art, which is dance comedy. And so it took me a long time to realize others didn't see it. And then I was like, oh, I got to figure out how to tell them what it is. But it's a completely nonverbal art form, but I can only use words and I can't point to something and be like, it's exactly that. So it's been a challenge in staying true to myself, to continue pushing myself, to continue figuring it out when I really don't know what the heck it is. And that's okay. And no one can tell me what it is because that's my job. So through that, I finally realized what words to use to get close to describing what it is because it doesn't exist, and what influences were that helped people get intrigued by it and they get a taste of it, but they don't really know what it is. But then I also realized, well, if they did know what it is, then they would be doing it. So that's okay too.
Right, right.
So sort of this, I can only make what I want of it myself. Others help me, yes, but I can't turn to someone and be like, tell me what it is. What should I do next? Why aren't people understanding this? Why have I been given this crazy stories in my head? What am I supposed to do with them? It's not fitting anywhere. So that was sort of the challenges along the way of that. And so I've gotten to a place where I'm like, oh, I know what it is now. I understand what it is now. And people say, no, 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 no. And I'm like, all right, bye. And then I go somewhere else. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And so it's being fully sure and confident. It took me a long time to get there, that I know what it is. I know how to do it. I've been lucky enough to work in so many, like I say, different mediums and genres to be given an amazing tool belt to pull from. So when people are like, oh, I don't get it, I don't understand that, that doesn't exist, that doesn't make sense, that sounds bad, they just don't know. And that's okay, because that's my job to make it. And then also the challenge was figuring out who I'm speaking to, what world they're from, meaning like theater, film, dance, music,
Yeah.
and what words I can use to go into their world so they understand what I'm saying. Like, I'm not going to talk about ballet to someone in film.
Right.
They may get it, it's just not their background. So how do I explain it to them from their lens? Because that's going to be the easiest way for us to get to what it is.
Absolutely. I love that you have really embraced and created your own journey and your own art out of all of this. And would I be correct in saying that because of what you envision, what you see in your head, and you're trying to create and manifest and share with everyone, there's a big reason why you have chosen to explore so many different mediums because they all offer something a little bit different to help express your ideas?
Correct.
Fantastic. I love that.
And I was also trying to find a home for them.
Yeah.
Trying to find like, oh, maybe this one is where it should be. Oh, maybe this is where it should be. Maybe this is where it should live. So that's sort of
Right.
been the discovery too.
For sure. And then, like you had said, it sounds like you've discovered that nothing really fits in any one singular box, but I could imagine different projects are able to adapt and really shine different aspects of the ideas through the different mediums.
Sure, sure. I also find that it also depends on what that medium can offer for it.
Yeah.
Like I love the dance world. That's where I grew up. And I was able to return to it with the Sacramento Ballet and able to workshop the piece live that became the short film. So and I'm kind of finding that film is sort of where I feel like this style works best right now. But most of the pieces that are moving into film started out as labs or live performances or, just sort of, so yeah, they all kind of feed each other.
Yeah.
And I can see one of the films then returning back and doing a musical on Broadway, so it's kind of like all and nothing.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, let's move on to this next section to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing in the entertainment industry. Tell us about that.
Do you have a preference of a theater or a film example?
Whatever you'd like to share.
We'll go with theater because that was kind of fun. I never expected I'd be a choreographer in musical theater. I was a very snobby ballerina, but I love it because it has story and it has comedy. Allows me to flex those muscles. And so, as an artist, we're working, 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 getting that job, trying to can make connections and da 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 da. And what I like to do, the game I like to play is let's trace back how I actually got this job. And it's never something you could have planned, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so I ended up doing the Pee Wee Herman show as a choreographer on Broadway. That was my first Broadway gig. And I was like, well, how the heck did that happen? Could I like replicate that? And I go back, let's see, that was in 2010. So that goes back to 2007. I ended up manifesting a one-nighter at the New York Musical Theater Festival that was all dance comedy. So it's different choreographers who had dance comedy pieces because I'm like, I can't be the only one. And my friend Danny Goldstein is a wonderful director who I'd done But I'm a Cheerleader with 2 years earlier at New York Musical Theater Festival, brought Alex Timbers, and he introduced me to Alex Timbers, and this was before Bloody Bloody and all that stuff. And then 2 years later, Alex calls me to do a choreography audition for a big show that didn't pan out, but I still got to work with him and talk with him more. And the day that we were doing that showing, he had just come back from opening Pee Wee in LA. I'm like, how's that going? How was it? And we chatted about that. And then like 6 months later, I see on Playbill that they're like, Pee Wee Herman's coming to Broadway. And I poked Alex and I said, hey, that's really great. Congratulations. I'm so jazzed for you. If you find you want a different choreographer or anything, I am so your girl. Not trying to take someone else's job, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to be on the plate and considered and just say, hey, I would love to do this because this is my jam. Well, he wrote back and he said, actually, we do need a new choreographer and we've been talking about you and I want you to meet Paul
Oh,
Rubinsky
wow.
Herman.
You're
I was
already
like,
on the table.
oh damn! Not only am I on the table, I'm on the top. Uh, so I don't know. I'm not sure if my email actually pushed them over the edge or whatever. But like you can never track that. You just can't track that. You can't make that. I mean, you can track it, but you can't make that happen. So that was really nice. That was really satisfying to not only get my first Broadway show, but have it be something that's in my wheelhouse. Have it be something that I was already being considered for. That was really satisfying, because that's what you
Absolutely.
want. That's what you want. You want people like, oh, hey, I know somebody who's awesome who can totally take care of you, who's really good at this, and it's Wendy, or it's Steven, or all these other wonderful choreographers that we all have different styles. So that's when I was like, oh, it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you mind talking a little bit about your transition from being a dancer to the choreography direction side of things?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I was heavily trained in ballet growing up. Love it. I am like a ballerina through and through in the bottom, but I like to tell stories and like to be funny. So that didn't really match that
Yeah,
much.
yeah, fair enough.
um, I quit when I was 14, got back into it in college, graduated college, and I was like, I got to go be a dancer. I got to try. Let's go to New York and figure this out. But I wasn't, musical theater was never on the docket. So as I said, I was working in the modern dance world and was like, oh, I think I want to choreograph. And I'd done it in college and I'd done it actually as a kid, just with friends and being fun. But I choreographed my first piece in 1996, and we'll say it was, a concert dance piece, sort of jazzy modern. And that's when I started to know, oh, this is using more of me than performing.
Yeah,
And so I pushed that for a while, and the comedy started to come. Then I wanted to get into musical theater because I was like, oh, there's story there, there's comedy there. I need to hone those skills as a choreographer. Let me try that. But I knew I wasn't going to make it up the regular ranks of being a dancer, an assistant, blah, 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 blah. This is just not how I work. I'm terrible at that stuff. I'm a really awful assistant. That's why I love Steven so much, because he is amazing. I can never do what he does. And so I got into an observership at the Stage Directors and Choreographers Union for a big Broadway show, which was the Pajama Game. And that was the Kathleen Marshall and Harry Connick. And so that kind of helped jump me to where my experience was already as a choreographer, if that makes sense.
for sure.
And then also coming from the concert dance world, the choreographer is what we would consider in film and TV and musical theater the writer, the producer, the director, the choreographer. Sometimes you're the lighting designer, and sometimes you're the costume designer.
Yeah, for sure.
So I always came from that point of view of being the director and the choreographer, what we would call in musical theater. But I also was wise enough to know I didn't have enough under my belt of directing in that world. So I
Hmm.
stayed with choreography for a while and was lucky enough to work with incredible directors that I could learn from and watch and see how they work and talk to. It was a crash course that I got. I'm sure I made mistakes and, made mistakes like we all do. But I was lucky enough to be smart enough to not try and achieve that immediately. I had to earn my way into that and be comfortable enough to do that.
For sure. Well, I'd love to piggyback on all of that and talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it, and what was going on in your life. What about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
So the film one was, as I've been honing my style of dance comedy, in 2012, I was like, you know what, let me take a piece of mine and shoot it and just see what happens. And I got a friend of mine who worked on a music video with me. He's like, I've never shot dance. I'm like, that's good because it's not like a dance film. I say that with heavy quotes because that's a whole specific niche. Since mine is more story based, it's more like a regular film. We shot
Right.
that. I looked at it and I was like, oh, dang, I need to do more of that. There's where it lives. And so it took me a while to sort of get the piece, hone it, create it. 2015, we like went whole hog. We raised the money. We got donations through Indiegogo. We got insurance. We had my casting director. We got amazing dancers from the theater community. We got the wonderful, like in the intro, Emmy winner Peter Scolari, who's amazing to be in it. I worked with him before, and his wife Tracy Shane, who's an incredible Broadway dancer. So we got everybody in the room. We made it happen. We figured out what festivals we wanted to apply for, and we applied to like the top ones, and we got no, 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 no,
Oh,
no. But yeah, I'm at this point, like I mentioned before, I was kind of already used to that. Everyone's like, no, 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 and I'm like, trust me, no, I know, not white yet. I know it's weird and it's different. So you just got to hang in there. And my film friends were like, just wait till you get that first one and it will start to snowball. And being the first one, meaning the film festival, being accepted to film festival.
right.
Because my work is commercial, but there's no words, but it's still a lot of story, but it's like a silent film, but it's contemporary. So it kind of hits all these buttons, which people never expect them to all work together. So like a lot of the big ones were like, no, I'm like, all right, that's fine. It's also comedy, and film at that time tended to be very introspective, I guess is a good word for it.
Yeah.
So no, 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 no. And then finally, after like 2.5 months, still pounding at it, we got our first yes. And I was like, I exist. No. But I mean, that's kind of how you start to feel. You're like, oh, am I wrong? Am I dumb? Am I like, what am I thinking? So the Vail Film Festival, thank God, lovely Vail Film Festival accepted us. And then that kind of literally anointed us in a way, because we already had gotten the stamp of approval that we can be shown at festivals. And then it just, again, it did start to snowball. And it snowballed enough that people started reaching out to us independently to show at festivals. Like
Oh,
we didn't
cool.
apply for them. I know, I was like, oh, is that something that happens?
Apparently.
Apparently. So, it was wonderful. It was such a great ride. And so to just get that first one, I mean, you don't want to be like, well, I know I'm good and I know my stuff is good. I don't need anybody to tell me. But yeah, you do sometimes, because you need to have it up and you need to have it screened. So somebody has to say yes.
For sure.
So the fact that they took a leap was wonderful. And that kind of just shot us over the moon, which was really fantastic. And I had no idea we would be in so many or win so many awards. And were they the top 10 film festivals? No, but that's okay. That's okay. And people kept telling us, which was really nice, like some of the jurors would pull me aside. They say, just so you know, this is a wonderful film to have in a lineup because you can open this, because when you do short films, there's like 8 or 10 that you show at one setting.
Yeah.
They're like, it's a great film because you can put it in the beginning, you can put it in the middle or the end. It's great. It's great. You always want to have something like this in your lineup, and yours is perfect. Okay,
I
great.
love it. That's fantastic. Well, let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And of course, we are amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
I think, film and TV have already started. Obviously, theater is just, out of luck for the next year, which because everything is in person, like literally in person, especially dance. I'm like, oh my God, you're touching each other
Yeah.
all the time to do lifts and whatever. So film and TV have already started to create sort of like a production, production rules that deal with COVID, which is great. I think and they're kind of passing it around the industry so everybody can kind of have input, which I think is really lovely. We don't know, and I was hoping to shoot my first feature this summer, but I had to let that go, which was really hard because I've been trying to do that for 2 years. So we just got to wait a little while longer.
Uh,
But, that's how it works. That's how it works. And I learned about, I don't know, probably 5 years ago. I'm like, you know what? I need to generate other projects. I need to have a bunch going on. Let's do that. Let's make sure we do that instead of just clinging to one.
Yeah.
So I started working with, and I just started to get into directing a couple digital series that we did very well. We got some great call outs for some of them. We got some awards for some of them. And so I was like, oh, I'm really good with story. I don't want to write dialogue. That's not really how my brain works. But if I can work with a writer that is good at that and they have an idea, we can create that. So right now I'm actually in the midst of writing 4 different series, and they're all at different sort of stages of development, which is helpful. And being in quarantine, I've been able to listen to a million seminars on pitch decks and pitching and lookbooks and pilots, and it's great. So when I immerse myself in something, I fully immerse it myself in, which I think is great. And then I also have the feature I was talking about, and that is called School Dance. And it was actually a piece I did for the 2006 New York Musical Theater Festival I called it School Days. But we can't do that as a film because there's, Spike Lee has one called that. So,
Oh, okay.
um, and actually that was funny too, how I got that. This is a little side note. How I got into the New York Musical Theater Festival with that, Moving Out had been out Swan Lake and Contact. And I turned to the guys who used to run the New York Musical Theater Festival, Isaac and Chris. It's like, hey, you guys want a dance narrative? And they said, yeah, you got one? I'm like, yeah, I do. And then we just made it happen.
That's so great.
You don't want to be arrogant or an idiot about it, but sometimes you
You
got to
got to
put it
throw
up
it out
there.
there. Yeah,
Exactly. Especially if people don't even know what you're doing or understand, even ask for it. You kind of have to put it out there.
absolutely.
So that we did very well. It was about an hour long, and that was terrifying because it was the first time I'd ever put a full, like an evening length piece of dance comedy, continuous narrative. So that was really terrifying. And Brishnikov happened to be there. Whatever.
No
Ugh,
big deal.
that was nerve wracking. And my friend was sitting next to him, like, I can't look at him, but tell me if he laughs. And he did. And he did.
Great.
And then I kind of didn't know what to do with that because it was a one act. Ballet companies are nowhere ready for that level of comedy, I think. It's not enough for a theater piece. It wasn't long enough. And then my theater career took off, which I'm grateful. So it kind of just sat on the shelf. But I always wanted to come back to it. So the past few years, I've been creating it, moving it into a feature-length film, expanding the script, trying to figure out how to write a script with no words, no dialogue. So I've been sort of figuring that out.
Yeah.
And it's fun because there's then different competitions you can apply to get feedback on your screenplay or have people look at it who can put it to a manager. That's a whole other world I'm discovering. But they're always like, it has to be 70 pages. So I email them, I say, hey, I'd like to do this. It is 82 minutes because I have the whole film score already because that's what we're creating to, but it's only 25 pages because there's no dialogue. May I still apply? And they go, oh, can you send us the script? Let me take a look at it. I'm like, sure. And they're like, yeah, totally apply.
Yeah, fantastic.
I guess you just got to be not a rule breaker, but you see the rules. And you're like, well, I don't fit in those. Here's where I do fit. What do you think, everybody? And then they go,
Yeah. Yeah, you mean you're very much your own advocate, aren't you? Because what you're creating it's unique to you. It's your creation, and it really, like you've said, doesn't exist anywhere else.
Exactly. And that's sort of learning how to embrace that without being arrogant or angry or dismissive or bullish. I mean, you can be all those things, but that's not fun. That's just a waste of energy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's move on to this next section here, and it is called the Grease Lightning Round. I
Yeah.
am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. I'll try.
All right. First question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
The fear that I was creating a brand new genre and who do I think I am?
Love it. Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
It's not really a piece of advice, but it's how everyone says you have to be tough skinned and you're going to hear a lot of no's. And that's about 1% of how much it is actually going to be. And that's your test. That's your test. That's the real test. is to move through those no's and keep going.
For sure. Third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Oh, well, right now, one of the series I'm working on, actually, all three involve puppets in a different way, which is something I never imagined I'd be doing, but here we are, which I love. One of them is it's all puppets. So we're realizing that the puppeteers can be completely masked, completely closed off from each other because we don't see them. So that makes it extremely valuable right now because everyone wants more content because they had to shut down. So they really only have content. I'm talking about networks and film and TV and streamers up to the end of the year. So they're looking for something they can easily shoot that's safe for everybody, as safe as they can be, so they can have more content. So we're sort of pushing that one, which I didn't think would be so valuable when we were
Yeah,
making
of
it.
course. Wow, that's great. And the fourth question. What is the best resource, whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, podcast, or maybe a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now?
I think it's the idea that it's a long journey. I've heard career artists who I admire say that. And as I'm getting deeper into my career now, it really is. There's never really a moment where you're like, and now I've made it and everything's okay. You're going to have highs and lows, but you have to be willing to sign on for the long journey. And you're going to make a lot of stuff that's great and you make a lot of stuff that's crap. So for me, listening to artists who I admire talk about their career in all different genres, all different mediums, just people whose work I love, who I connect with, and who have the career that I would like to have. I don't mean their career, but it's varied and they're challenged and they're humble and they love what they do and it's about the craft and they like working with other people and helping them along too.
I love that. And I think that's incredible advice for anyone listening that it really is about the long haul. This is not some kind of you do one gig and you're all set at all.
I mean, you might do that. You may be like, oh, done. Bye-bye. I'm going to go work in the corporate world and make money and have health insurance. That's cool
Oh,
too.
totally. But if you want to continue having a professional career in this industry, you got to stick it out.
Yeah, and there is a price to pay. There's a price to pay for whatever choice you make. If you want to have, children, or if you want to have a successful career that, you kind of have to sacrifice things for. Like there's always that give and take. But to me, it's been worth it. I made that choice with my eyes open. And as we're going down, I'm like, ooh, good, I made that right choice.
Right. Right. Totally. Well, the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
Well, I kind of actually feel like I just recently did that by moving into film. So it was sort of interesting because I had to kind of start all over there because nobody knows me.
Right.
And in the film world, they're like, what is okay, side note, a choreographer in film and TV is a very different animal than a choreographer in musical theater. The expectations are different, the contributions are different. I don't mean it's bad or good. It's just very different. So when you're going to the film world, oh, you just come in and do a couple steps. No, as a musical theater choreographer, I'm part of the story. I'm in the room with everybody. I'm talking about, shifting pieces around, obviously maybe in a song or, like I'm part of the whole process. Where in film, you kind of, depending on how big the dance section is, you come in that morning, you rehearse, you shoot, you're out. Wow,
Right.
that's weird. So coming into the film world, I kind of had to like start all over again because some of my credits transferred, but not really. But yeah, luckily I had enough confidence at that time to like how I am now that I understood that. And I was like, oh, what do I need to figure out to explain to you what I do in a lingo that you understand? So you understand I
Totally.
have the experience, you understand that. So it's also, it's just kind of reading the room and understanding that you may have the experience, but they might not believe you understand you yet. And you have to figure out how you get there. And you got to pay your dues, like I came in and I would do like I think my first major TV thing was choreographing for Law and Order, SVU,
Yeah.
which just sounds random. It was these women who were violinists and they were at a club, and it was like just having them kind of stomp around and look pretty, and came in, taught it, shot it, left. In musical theater, that's like the opening number. So, it's
Right.
understanding that, and that I'm kind of on the the low man of the totem pole again, which is fine because then I got to hang out on set and see what people did and see how it works. And then I met the director, who was really lovely and kind, and he'd worked with choreographers before, so there was a little bit more of an understanding. And now I can call him and chat with him, and we're trying to get me to shadow with him on another series. So it's also making sure that you understand where you are and trying to soak in as much as you can, instead of being, oh, I have to start all over again. Well, forget it. But you're not really.
Of course. And, I love that throughout this entire interview, you have consistently said, you have to figure out how to communicate and speak with whoever it is that you're working with, whether that's the film side of things, whether that's the theater side of things. But it's always about you also trying to communicate to your audience, and not only that end audience who's going to see the finished product, but the people that you're working with, part of the creative team. And I think that's incredible for everyone to take away from this, because it's all about those relationships. And if you can meet people where they're at, you are only helping yourself.
Yeah, we're helping both of you. I think it's very kind of you to say thank you. I wasn't always like that. We all have to learn our lessons. But coming in from the concert dance world into musical theater world, I never really had like a big chorus of dancers. I'm a very pedestrian choreographer, so I'm also really good with actors. But then I get 11 actors, and they're all different levels of dance and comfortability in their movement and bodies, but they all have to look the same. So
Right.
instead of me being like yelling at one of them because they're not doing it, I'm finding, and some people aren't a fan of it, some people are, but the sooner I can get to how they organically move and give them a comfortability factor, then we can move further. And my favorite thing is that sometimes they learn they had a tool in their toolbox that they didn't know about, but we discovered it because they weren't getting in their own way. I wasn't getting in their way. And so to me, then we can go further. I mean, that was a hard lesson to learn, but it was important to learn that. And because choreography and dance is still sort of like this kind of mysterious thing to a lot of people, and if you're not deeply embedded in it, so you kind of have to cross the bridge to them and understand how they view it, so you can then find that common ground and also explain it's also not a mystery. It's just dance. It's fine.
Yeah, for sure. And it's fun because it's dancing.
I agree.
And the last question: what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Be kind to everybody. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter if they're a PA. It doesn't matter if they're the lead. Just treat others as you want to be treated. Like, it's really that, because you never, and I hate to say just because, but you should in general, but you also never know what they're going to be. Like, the PA might be writing a script that's going to go somewhere, and they're like, hey, will you direct this? So I don't mean to sound like it's always a hustle, or it's always, just be nice to people because they may give you a job, but you should really just be nice to people. And they also might give you a job, but it's hard enough life. Like, this is a hard life. Why make it harder by just, being mean and ornery and not being nice to people?
I agree. I agree. And it is time to wrap up this interview. And Wendy, that means it's time for you to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you'd want to promote?
I can't right now because we have nothing happening. I'm really bad at this. I'm kind of old at this. I do have a website, and it's my name, wendyseyb.com. It's S as in Sam, EYB as in boy. You can tell I've had to say that a lot my whole life.
Yes.
I am on Instagram, and I think I'm Cyber1. That
Perfect.
sounds
I'll
so
find you and I'll
awful.
make sure I put it in the description.
Okay, that's good. I'm also on Venmo, or no, not Venmo. Yeah, everybody send me your
Yeah,
money.
absolutely
I'm,
on Venmo.
I mean, Vimeo. I always mix those up. You can find my work on there. You can find my work on my website too. But yeah.
All right, fantastic. Wendy, it has been such a pleasure to have you on today. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode. We have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.